Dr. Frank, it's good to see you. Happy 4th of July.
Back at you, brother. Nice shirt.
Thank you. Nice shirt as well. I like it. No bow tie. You're going casual today.
Today I'm casual, yes.
This is as casual as you get. With the jacket, I mean, I'm just, you know, and you don't even, do you have jeans on? Come on. You got
I have
jeans?
black
Okay,
jeans.
black jeans.
Yeah.
All right. I was worried. So we got to drag you out to a barbecue or something and make sure we get you some hot dogs, hamburgers.
Yeah,
you got
good.
plans for tonight?
Yeah, I'm going to be doing another interview after this. Going to go see Scott Kesterton, Bards FM.
That's nice.
Going to do another interview.
Bards is great.
Yeah.
They've got a huge audience.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot from his show. They're everywhere.
Yep.
And that's good.
He and I are good friends, and we've done a couple of events together. And so while I'm in the neck of the woods, I should drop in and see him.
Where are you from?
I live in Ohio, but I grew up in Northern California, in Sonoma County. And
okay.
I've lived in Ohio since 1986.
So it's quite a travel.
I'm on the road pretty much all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. I mean, it's like my favorite schedule is 2 weeks on the road, a few days at home, 2 weeks on the road, a few days. And I've been doing that for about 4 years now.
Nice.
We're in a war, and you know, you can't fight a war remotely. You got to get boots on the ground. And so that's what I'm hearing. That's why I'm here in Oregon.
So the last time you were here,
Yeah.
we talked, and we had done an interview, and what we talked about was the debate that you were going to be having with Professor Grimmer, which happened the day after. So we really kind of got to catch up on what did you think of that debate, and what do you think of the county commissioners allowing that to happen in their county?
I was delighted with Justin Grimmer. He's a professor from Stanford. When CNN did an interview of me, you know, they play the interview part of me, and then they bring up Justin Grimmer as the opposing point of view. So that was the first time I'd ever heard of him. That was in 2021. He was the opposing voice to my position. And so later that night, I went on social media, and he came on, and we had a public debate then. And I could tell already that he comes from a point of view that's kind of theoretical, not boots on the ground. And so that debate didn't go very well for him. So as I was traveling the country, people were saying, we want to bring in Justin Grimmer and have you debate him. And I'm like, I'm in. And so we had two of them scheduled, and where the night before he didn't show. He called and said, I'm changing my mind, they're not coming. So I was even expecting for him to not show in Coos County, but we
kind of had a bet. We were wondering, you know, is this guy going to show up or not? And so, we were curious. But he did.
But he did, and he showed up with one of his graduate students, and that was fun for me because I have an academic background. I got to kind of chat with his people a little bit. And you made a recording. This is funny. You made a recording with your equipment that was better than the recording the county made.
Oh, yeah. It was way better.
Exactly.
They get the back of our heads great. They do a great job of that. One of the things that I loved about this whole debate was you got to present your slideshow. And, of course, you show the graph where you can determine how the lines for every county were spread apart when we weren't doing vote by mail. And then when we went to vote by mail, they became a singular. Like it was being controlled or artificially manipulated because there's no way it could be doing that. No way. And then he pulls out his graph, which was a graph of indicators. He didn't actually have the lines, which I thought was interesting. There's a reason why he didn't have the lines, because they would have duplicated what you did.
Exactly.
And he made your argument with his indicators, and then he had the nerve to say, there is no way that you could have come up with this graph, and you responded, and yet I did. And
that was a great moment.
Too. Yeah.
It was a great moment in the debate. He kept saying, Dr. Frank claims that he can predict this and predict this, but no, these indicators say he can't predict it. And then I said, and there it is. And I just put the graph up again. So it was like, he can argue all he wants, hypothetically.
Right.
And I'm showing that I'm actually doing what I claim to do, and anybody else can do it if they want to. And it was funny because his data even confirmed my...
Yes. Yeah, the indicators, that's what I said. If there would have been lines on it, you could have taken his data, put it over your graph, and it would have been the same numbers. And have you heard from him or heard about any more debates since then?
Not since. And I think just because I think I dealt with him pretty handily.
I think so.
I think my favorite part of the whole debate, though, honestly, was when he said, well, Dr. Frank claims that there's all this cheating and whatnot going on, and he says, but my analysis says there's not, that this is perfectly reasonable. And then the county commissioner, Rod Taylor, Rod Taylor said, well, excuse me, let me ask you a question. And he said, Dr. Frank gave me a list of 20 addresses where he said I would find evidence of what he's claiming. And Rod described how he and his wife knocked on 7 doors, and they quit knocking on them after that because 7 out of 7 of the doors he knocked on confirmed exactly what I was claiming. So I just thought that was like what happened in the debate is I spoke for 35 minutes, and he spoke for 35 minutes, and then it was a 2.5-hour open discussion. And as that was happening, that's where Professor Grimmer made some claim, and then Rod came in and said, yeah, but wait a minute. Dr. Frank gave me the list. I knocked on the doors. It's exactly the way he said.
Right.
That was to me, that was a nail in the coffin moment.
Well, and that's the problem I find with anyone who are your detractors. You said the boots on the ground. To find out for absolute, to find out the absolute, you've got the list. You've got the phantom list. It takes boots on the ground.
Yep.
And if we put those boots on the ground, we would find that evidence, but it's very difficult to get people, the volunteers, and do all that around. Are you having any luck getting that done?
Oh, baby.
Okay.
So that was last October 2024, that we were doing that. I was back again in March.
Right.
To follow up on the teams I started when I was with you, and they are making great progress. I started some new teams in March as well, which is why I'm here now, here in July, following up on those teams and starting new teams. And I'm coming back again for 10 days in September, because your movement is exploding here.
Oh, wow.
There's multiple things happening. Multiple streams there's a nexus happening. First of all, Judicial Watch is suing your state.
Right.
And it was announced when I was here.
Yeah. Which was odd because,
timing was pretty...
I almost felt like calling and saying, okay, what did you do, man? Okay, so...
The day I was here in October, you're right. And Judicial Watch announces the lawsuit. The governor admitted that your rolls were full of... That very day.
Right.
Admitted that your rolls were full of non-citizens, and so all this stuff was happening while I was here. It was perfect.
And they were just here last week with the case to see if the case would move forward.
That's right.
Which, by the way, if they win or lose, this is not about the actual evidence of the case. This is whether the people in the case have standing, I believe it is.
Yes.
Once again, they go back to the standing. I'm a voter. I feel like I have standing in my election. Yeah. I don't know. Just call me crazy.
So the case was, the plaintiff in the case is in Marion County, and I was just with him last night, by the way.
Nice.
It's not an accident, so your suspicions weren't completely unwarranted. I had something to do with that.
Okay.
But the timing, I didn't have anything to do with it.
Right,
So Judicial Watch is suing the state for your voter rolls being out of compliance with NVRA, that's National Voter Registration Act 1993, and also out of compliance with HAVA, Help America Vote Act 2002. So your state is out of compliance. Your state's taking money from the federal government to help with your elections, but on condition that there are strings that you follow, and you're not following them.
Right.
So that's what the case is about, and Judicial Watch wins these all over the country. So the plaintiff is in Marion County, and that was happening. And so the state challenged the case and tried to get it dismissed. That court was 2 weeks ago, and the judge was supposed to release his verdict on the dismissal yesterday, Wednesday.
I thought it was coming up soon, right?
Yeah, it was supposed to, and it didn't come out. So, but here's the fun part: the case happens. The Department of Justice, the federal Department of Justice, has launched a probe. So it's almost like they're piling on.
Right.
So if I was that judge, I wouldn't be so quick to dismiss.
Right.
Judges don't like to be standalone. If the judge dismisses it and the Department of Justice says, look at all this stuff we found, that judge is going to look pretty stupid if there's grounds.
Right. And we know they're going to find it. It's there.
100%.
I mean in Oregon, and we know they're putting dead people on the voter rolls. We know people
know for a fact
are just not real and who are on the voting rolls. And people go, well, how can this be? And it's like, well, they don't demand them to actually clean the voter rolls, from what I understand.
You have 105% of your people registered.
That's amazing.
And that's
amazing.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
And people always say, well, that's just because the Democrats are evil. No. Kentucky has 105% of their people registered.
And they're Republican.
Exactly. And so I always tell people this is not a Republican-Democrat issue. This is whoever's in control wants to keep the control.
Right.
Still the story in government. And I know we had a great chat about that last time. I could tell we have libertarian leanings
on that.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And
go ahead.
But the thing is and control is one of those things that,
Yeah.
and I said it, I think last time, control, it's an illusion, because people always think of control, and I always say it's either someone who makes a wrong choice under coercion, or they're being forced to do something against their will. So it's force or choice. And if you put it into those terms, it's easier to see that maybe control is that illusion, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so who is the person pulling the strings behind these machines? Is it the globalist? Is it the communist? Is it a nefarious group? Okay, there you go.
Yes, it absolutely is.
Okay.
And in your state, you've got a lot of that going on.
A lot of it.
And there's basically they're keeping central control of that.
We just had 2 people arrested here at the college, and I forget what the exact charges were, who worked for the Chinese government.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, you had them where the Chinese were messing with our voter rolls. And that was happening here in Oregon. And so it's not like something, we're making up. This was on MSNBC, so it has to be true, right?
Yeah, and just a couple of weeks ago, you saw Kash Patel's announcement that weeks before the 2020 election, the FBI became aware of the fact that China had printed 1 million fraudulent driver's licenses and 1 million fraudulent ballots, and that was all suppressed.
Right.
And so you notice that a lot of things are coming out right now all at once, and so that's why I'm so excited to be in Oregon, because I have teams springing up everywhere. I've been meeting with your sheriffs too, and your sheriffs are like, this is the thing. I don't live in Oregon. I live around the country. The perception of Oregon of the rest of the country is that you're this wacky communist blue state. But my perception after being around here, no, you're not. You're a red state with some blue dots.
Right.
Your red county, you got over 30 counties easy that are very, very red counties.
Yeah.
And they're conservative. They have conservative values. The GOP in those counties are conservative. Your sheriffs are conservative. Your county leaders are conservative.
Right.
I mean, it's amazing how red you are. But you know what? They aren't working together.
No.
And that's the problem, and that's what I'm here for.
Right.
So I'm here, I'm organizing these teams, but after I'm getting them started county by county, I'm getting them to work together in a statewide effort, and that's going to be happening shortly.
That's going to be interesting.
It's sort of like, we're planning to invade Normandy, and you don't do that one ship at a time. You get your ships organized, get your troops organized, and then we're going to act together.
So in a political party, you have your precincts, and then you have a precinct captain who's in charge of the precinct, and then you have the party apparatus who aligns those precinct captains. So literally you're starting at that type of level.
Yes.
Each precinct in each county has to have someone there who's able to take this to the next level, which would be the statewide level, to prove overall that each county has the same problem. So no matter whether you fix it here in this county or that county, it's a statewide condition, which is actually a nationwide condition. But
100%.
if you can prove it here in Oregon, which seems to me like it would be the easiest state to prove it in.
It's very easy here.
Okay, so if you can prove it here, then you should be able to prove it in Kansas and Missouri and all the other places.
So imagine a situation where, just one hypothetical, that one county researches their voter rolls, they knock on the doors, they get the community leaders engaged, and they say, we're really unhappy with the state election system, we want to take back local control. Imagine that situation. What would happen? The state would pound on them like a load of bricks. But now imagine a different situation where, say, 3 or 4 counties stand up together and say, we've all analyzed our counties, and we all have the same problem in our counties, and our county leaders are stepping up and saying, we're not going to use the state system anymore because it's disenfranchising us from our constitutional rights. And then wouldn't it be nice if the next day 6 more counties in Oregon all stood up and said, our county leaders aren't stepping up, but we the people are, and we have the same problems here. So now what we've done is we've taken away from being like a rebellious one county situation to multiple counties throughout the state that are standing up together and saying, this system that the state is imposing upon us is disenfranchising our citizens from our constitutional rights. we don't have to comply. In fact, we have an obligation, we've sworn an oath, to defend the constitutional rights of our citizens. So we're going to follow the letter of the law. We're going to follow every law to the letter of the law, and which, by the way, happens to contradict what the Secretary of State is telling us to do. But guess what? We don't have to comply with a law that disenfranchises us from our constitutional rights. So we're going to actually follow the state law to the letter, and we're going to follow the federal law to the letter. And just because the Secretary of State says, no, 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 you can't, we don't care. They're standing together, and that's what's going to make this work.
And that's what's going to make this work because, and if it goes down the litigious route, you have more standing, once again, if it's at the county level and you have multiple counties who are bringing this. If you have the clerk of several counties moving forward, that would be the best scenario.
That's where I'm going.
It can come from the people. It can come from the people.
It's better from the people. I've learned if you, and I always tell the local citizens, you're not asking your sheriff to stand up. You're not asking your county clerk to stand up. You're not asking your county commissioner to stand up. I want hundreds of you to stand up and to go to your commissioner meeting and say, we pay you, we elect you, you work for us, you represent us, and we are telling you, here's the evidence.
Here's the evidence.
We are not going to comply anymore. And there's a huge, it's an important principle there. It's right out of the art of war. If one soldier sticks their head up, where all the guns aim. So we don't want the county leaders to be leading it. We want the people to be leading it, we the people. And then what happens is the county leaders are between a rock and a hard place. Of course, we will have prepared the leaders ahead of time. When the state comes and complains, they say, look, we work for them, we swore the oath. So we're not asking them to stick their neck out. That just makes it litigiously against them.
Just stand your ground. That's literally all
stand your ground.
Stand your ground.
Beautiful.
And that's your job, is to stand. And when we send them, the legislators off to Salem, we know that we have a supermajority of Democrats, so you can't do anything. Stand your ground. Just stand your ground. And in fact, they just passed a gun law that was decided by the Supreme Court as being unconstitutional, and yet they just passed the law knowing
it was unconstitutional.
And they even said it in committee. We know this is probably unconstitutional,
and but
here it is. And so, as gun owners, we're doing like the voting thing. We're just not going to comply. We've said we're done with it. We are going to do what we want. You can take us all down, or we're going because we're not.
We'll see you in court.
Yeah, we'll see you in court.
And it'll go to the Supreme Court, and it'll be overruled. And there you go.
And so, what other court cases now? Because there were a couple of other ones still peddling through, weren't there? That
around the country, you mean, or in Oregon? The Georgia stuff, and then the Supreme Court case, the Brunson case. There are a lot of those things.
Wait, the Brunson case still going?
Not really. It's ruling, and I don't like court cases.
I don't either.
And there are a couple reasons. There's only one advantage to them, and that's that the public gets educated. What I don't like is people they turn into spectators. Instead of engaging an election integrity movement, they say, oh, we're watching the court case.
The court.
And so, and I don't ever expect any of these court cases to give us a good remedy. And even if they do give us a good remedy, I don't expect them to give us the remedy in time for, say, the midterms, So I don't think that that's a good way for us to spend our energy. You have another big initiative going in this state.
Vote by mail. End vote by mail.
And I love the idea of a citizen initiative and collecting citizens. I love that idea, but I like to remind people, okay, what's going to happen? You're going to collect signatures. It's going to get on the ballot. You're going to vote in 2026. Okay, so that's pretty far away from right now. And so even though you're educating the public that vote by mail is a bad idea, you're also encouraging everybody to say, sign the petition and then watch.
Vote, and vote by mail, too.
And then I always say, you're going to try to fix broken elections with broken elections. Is that a... So
that's kind of the tools in the toolbox. You know what I mean? It's like having the old rusty hammer that's, it falls off the handle and stuff, and that's what we got in Oregon.
Well, that's why my strategy that we're doing now is new. It's going to happen. It's going to happen soon. For example, imagine that the ruling comes down in the lawsuit, say, 3 months from now. Because let's assume that the dismissal is not upheld. 3 months from now, the ruling comes down, yep, you're out of compliance with federal law, yep, you're out of compliance with state law. That would be a lovely opportunity for 3 counties to stand up and say, guess what? It's proven in court that the state system is out of compliance with federal law and state law. So guess what? We don't have to comply with it. That could happen in 3 months from now.
Yeah.
We're not waiting for an election a year and a half from now.
Right.
3 months from now. And then the next week, the other half a dozen counties can stand up. So that's imminent. That's what's exciting to me about that strategy.
And from what I understand, they could actually pass, whether through a public initiative or through a vote of the county commissioners, they could go back to one-day voting.
Yeah.
Because that's not...
The county could.
The county could,
Yes.
if the county decided it. On
Yes.
a county level, because we have Home Rule Charter 1,
Yep.
but 2, it's
Yep.
in the Constitution that they can do that.
And
That
I'm
would be
grinning.
interesting.
And I'm grinning because there's something else going on.
Okay.
This is what I mean. There are so many things coming together. This is a
Okay.
nexus. We've got President Trump in office now.
And that's a bonus, huge bonus.
And he is passing executive orders. And what if, just what if, he were to pass an executive order that said federal elections have to be carried out in this way, such as one day, on machines made only in America, things like this. That could throw a huge wrench into this.
Well, he just did an executive order not too long ago on something on the election.
The SAVE Act.
The SAVE Act. Refresh my memory. I'm having a
That's okay.
old man's moment.
It's still going through Congress, but basically he's itemized all the things that we should be doing for having clean elections. You know, single day, on paper, you can't have non-citizens
Show
on the
an
rolls,
ID.
show an ID, et cetera, et
Okay.
cetera. Prove it. Those basic elements that all of us common sense people would say, yeah, we got to
Right.
have. And making federal elections a national holiday, so you suddenly have all these free hands to do hand counting, et cetera. That's coming. So when I was here last time in March, I spoke to the Washington County Board of Commissioners.
Okay.
And I told them, I said, Trump's elected. When I was with you, Trump hadn't been elected yet. When in March, I said, this is coming. You can either wait till it happens to you and be reactive,
Right.
or you can prepare now and
Right.
be proactive. I recommend you be proactive, especially because I was also hinting that there's a citizen movement that was growing in Washington County, where that was. That is a particularly successful group. They are kicking
Nice.
butt there.
Nice.
And we are finding tons of fraud, tons of dead. When I say dead voters, I'm not saying that somebody who's died is still in the voter rolls. I'm saying there's somebody who died, is in the voter rolls, and a ballot was cast using
that
their
person.
name. Multiple elections after they were dead. Okay?
Right.
So we have really good evidence.
Doug, you can go stand at the fair that's happening in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I'll hear that story at least 2 or 3 times at the fair. Someone will come up. My uncle, he's been dead for 2 years, and he voted in the last election. If I hear it once, I'll hear it at least 2 or 3 times
Yeah.
at the fair. And it's like, well, give me the information.
Yeah.
Find me something,
Yeah.
and I can never get it. It takes them, they never follow up with it, which once again is that apathy that Americans
Right.
have. And it's like, if we would just have just a couple of them follow back up and say, okay, my uncle's dead, he did vote, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Because there is something strange that's happening.
That's a great point. So my teams, I'm training my teams. I'm doing this all over the country, so I've run into the same thing. Each one of them have binders. You open the binder. This is a case of, and there are 10 cases of fraud in their binder. And some of those are dead voters. You open up to that tab. John Smith lives at 123 Apple Tree Lane. Here's the voter roll record showing that he voted. Here's a copy of his death certificate showing that he died 2 years behind. So in other words, we're not just making the claims.
You're cataloging.
We are documenting and cataloging. And then once we have that, we don't even stop there. We talk to the widow or the widower, and we say, would you sign an affidavit? And did you cast that ballot, Grandma? And she's like, no, I don't do it. Well, somebody did. And so we go to the sheriff with that information, and he puts a case number on it, because that's fraud. That's identity theft. So we take it. It's not wild claims. Nothing goes public. It's one of my rules when I work with my teams. Nothing goes public until you have the full documentation and it's been peer reviewed by somebody.
Right. And as someone who has written many articles and go on to podcasts and have to make many claims, I got to have those receipts.
Yep.
In fact, I just got some receipts on a big thing yesterday that just happened. It was a finance violation, and I knew it was finance violation 8 months ago, but you have to wait that 8 months for the Secretary of State to go, you were right, this is wrong, and here's the decision.
Yeah.
Which, okay, that helps me, but it didn't help me during the primary when I could have used that information. That's the important stuff.
Yeah.
So one of the things that, and this goes back to getting this information and having the receipts, is that people, like you said, we have to have this documented. And if you can have that information that you can present to people, that makes a much bigger and credible argument when you present that to people, because they're going to say you're crazy. They're going to say you're nuts because, like I said, I've heard this story over and over again. But yeah, I have done an investigation where I found voter fraud with someone who's a prominent figure, who's voted for 10 years in San Francisco, California, and in Curry County. And I found that person, both places.
That's fraud.
And people go, well, fraud doesn't happen. It never happens.
All over the place.
And here we come with these cases. And it's like, well, yeah, but it wasn't adjudicated. And I go, well, because you guys decided not to adjudicate it. You remedied it by having the guy sign that he was going to stop voting in California, which to me is an admission that it was a problem in the first place.
Now, when we find fraud like that, in that case, the person was voting in both places. He should not have been doing that.
Right.
Most of the time when we find somebody voting in more than one state, it's really not them voting in more than one state.
Right.
And so we get them to sign an affidavit swearing they didn't vote. Okay, so then the problem becomes, the reason why it doesn't get adjudicated is, or there's a court case afterwards, is because the court's left with the situation, who do we prosecute?
Right.
This person, we have fraud in our election, but who do we prosecute?
Right.
So that's why a lot of these, they don't get prosecuted. Now, one of the things is a lot of this is perception. I love that we're having this discussion. So when these counties stand up and say we're not going to comply, we've been preparing binders. We call them evidence binders. They all look exactly the same. And when you open up the cover, they all look exactly the same. And they have the 10 tabs for each case of fraud. And so what happens is they show the same problem. It's a PSYOP. You're showing the community it's the same problem everywhere. Now, they have different cases in each county because we're showing it's that county.
But it's the same process.
Yes.
It's like a gambler who, or a guy who cheats at gambling.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of cheaters, but there's only so many ways to cheat, and they're all doing it the same way. So if you figure out how they're doing it, you don't need to know why. You just got to know how, and that's what you got to fight for and to clean up.
Yeah, and so that's what's so fun about this, is that it's the same few ways in every county. We've got it down to a science, literally. We're just finding the fraud, and then we organize it together, and then we're going to actually put those names and addresses right into the public record. We're going to read those. We're going to go to the county commissioner meeting and say, and have 10 people in a line, 3 minutes each.
Right.
And each one says, here's case number 1. John Smith lives 123 Apple Tree Lane. He died in 2020, but he voted in the next 2 elections. Here's the death certificate. Next person gets up. And they're reading them formally into the public record.
Right.
Okay, and that's why we peer review them ahead of time, to make sure every one of them is a good case. So you can't argue with us anymore. The evidence is clear that we have problems. And then sometimes people say, well, you only showed 10 cases, that doesn't change anything. We have binders full. We're just showing you these 10 because we've learned if we put 100 of them out there, nobody looks. We're going to show you 10 clear cases. And if you think that 10 cases don't matter, then, when a county commissioner says, well, you only shown us 10, we say, okay, well, if 10 cases don't matter to you, then you and 9 other of our county officials have to give up their ballots in the next election, because that's what you're asking us to do. Because every one of these fraudulent ballots is nullifying one of our real ballots.
Right.
No, it's not okay. We're being disenfranchised from our constitutional rights. Every one of these ballots was paid for with blood. No. We will not tolerate this system anymore. So, and so that's kind of the universal argument too. So we don't only have universal data presented in the same way, we have the same arguments.
Right.
But
it makes it easier that way because the responses make,
and then everybody knows it's the same problem in the whole state.
Right. That's why I've got a lot of good friends who have the gift of gab, and when you take them on the podcast, they make my job easy, but it's information that I'm not just keeping in myself. It's not a silo.
Yeah.
I'm getting it out to people, and that's the important part, because I'm learning that we don't have a news source unless we are the news source, and it's much like this election integrity. Unless we're doing it, there's nobody doing it. They don't care. The commissioners really, they've got their hands full, and they don't care. The clerks, they're hoping you don't care and don't show up because they don't want to work. And, you know, Debbie Heller, going back to a Coos County commissioner, Coos County clerk, she was the clerk that came after Terry Turry, who, she was a friend of mine. I liked her, and she was a good clerk. But she resigned as soon as they found out she resigned as soon as we found out they didn't back up the voter images for the 2020 election.
Whoops.
And
she made
immediately,
a mistake or something.
Oops, yeah. And so she was gone.
Yeah. She'd rather be out of the firing line. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
We had a big court case since last time I was with you with Mike Lindell, and also about Tina Peters as well. Some things have happened since I was here, and both those court cases went poorly. Mike's case, he would, if you asked him, he would say, Mr. Lindell, he'd say that it was good for his company because his company was exonerated. So My Pillow is completely in the clear.
Nice.
But he's responsible for $400,000 in damages, and Frank Speech, it's called, not named after me, Frank Speech, $1.2 million in damages, and he's going to appeal that. Why? Because he wants to put the evidence in front of the people. Yeah. He wanted to get sued in the first place. He was mad because he wanted to put the evidence into court, but he was mad that they sued his company.
Right.
Mike has a big heart. He has. I've walked the floor of his plants with him, and about a third of the people there, when you have a look, they look like former drug addicts, and they probably are. And he has this whole Lindell recovery network. He's always
someone needs to be doing it. My gosh!
And making pillows doesn't take a whole lot of skill,
right?
And so he's got all these people. And so he was so mad when My Pillow was sued, because it's like his family protects. So that happened, and then Tina Peters she got put in prison since we were last together.
I did hear that.
And if you notice, the Department of Justice has launched a lawfare investigation into the state of Colorado because of that. And about a month ago, President Trump tweeted that he's going to declare her a national whistleblower and take her out under federal protection. So something like that's about to happen. I don't know any inside information, but I do know for a fact that I was at CPAC with Mr. Lindell in February, and we presented I didn't do it, but Mr. Lindell was able to go to the Oval Office for 90 minutes, and we brought up the situation with Tina. And President Trump pointed to his 6 attorneys in the room, and he says, "Get her out." So
nice.
Something's happened.
That's a good thing, and because otherwise what they're doing is they're trying to chill anyone like you or me who's
100%.
Questioning them. And I've been through it. I've been threatened to be sued because we want to silence you. Literally, we just want to silence you. I got threatened to be sued because I shared a meme. That's how ridiculous this is. And okay, you're talking about My Pillow and how they went after his business. That's how they are. They're like the mafia. It reminds me of what was that movie with Sean Connery and Kevin Costner? They hurt one of you. You take 2 of theirs to the hospital. You know what I mean? And that's the way we're playing these days.
Was with the Untouchables.
The
prohibitions thing.
So, and that's literally what we're fighting against, like the Italian mob, because they're going to come after you. And if we can't take you out and argue against your word, we're just going to eliminate you. We'll deplatform you. We'll go after your private business. We'll go after your wife's private business. I mean, that's just some nasty stuff.
And they've been successful at it.
Yes, they have.
As I've been traveling around the country, I've been getting fraud all over the place. And we meet with the county clerk and we say, "Here's some fraud in your county." The blood drains from their face, and they're like, "I don't want to be Tina Petered."
Right.
They say that to me, and I understand. So that was very successful, that lawfare against them. And that's why the news media, you brought up the topic a minute ago, that's why the news media won't cover this issue, because they're afraid of being sued.
Right.
And anyone was going around suing any news media that covered questions with the election.
All of them, right.
And so that's why you, other podcasters, et cetera, really are the only source of the real news these days. Because everyone else is afraid.
The only reason they don't come after most of us podcasters is we're doing it from, our back rooms or mom's basement, So go ahead, sue me. I got last year's laundry laying on the couch over here. So, my net worth is, I owe people. So come on, sue me. I could use the help.
Worst things happened to me is they took my cell phone at the airport, right? The FBI met me.
Did you ever get it back?
No. It's about 3 years ago. People say, well, I wouldn't use it if I got it back anyway.
Right.
But it's still, it cost me $1,000 to go out and buy another cell phone.
Yeah.
So that's kind of lawfare. And then I was debanked. So, okay. So, but I had prepared for that because when I first started working with Mike Lindell, a couple of Navy SEALs sat me down and said, here are your new security protocols.
Yeah.
And I prepared, and protecting my finances and financial situation was part of those protocols. And so, because they knew they're coming after you, you better be ready. And so I was prepared. And, if that's the worst thing that happens to me, I'm not sitting in prison like Tina Peters. So,
right.
Anyway, I think for every day she spends in prison that these people, these officials in Colorado, I spent 2 days in prison for every day.
I think the January 6ers are launching their lawsuits against Washington, and I think they'll be victorious.
Head should roll, as far as I'm concerned.
Head should roll. I mean, this is the worst of the worst. And here's the funny thing: is you got people out there protesting today about the No Kings Day,
right? And
it's like, wait a minute, aren't you the ones who took a guy who won in a primary, basically told him to take a hike, and then you put a woman in his place without nobody voting, without anyone electing this woman, and somehow Trump is the king. And
but you appointed a king.
But you appointed a king.
Oh, a wannabe anyway.
Yeah. So that's where we are today, and that's our situation. So where do we go from here?
Well, where do we go from here is Oregon's not the only place that I'm doing this.
Oh, gosh, thank goodness.
And I've got multiple other states where this is happening, and a lot of this is coming to a head now. I think the fact that...
Wait, are they sunny, warm states? Because that's where I'd focus, I think, would be...
Like California?
California. Well, California. I would be afraid in California, though.
Okay. So... let me tell you about Shasta County, Northern California.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so that was one of my first big breakthroughs. But that was still in the early days when I was fighting at a county level, one at a time. And I didn't really appreciate the fact that if one county steps up, the state's going to just, which was what was happening. Sacramento, every time Shasta County would do something, Sacramento would pass a law. It was tit for tat, tit for tat. And they were trying to stop the other counties from following suit. Well, we've... during that battle, we've gotten 3 of their election officials fired in a row. And now we just replaced with Clint Curtis is the new election official. People want to know who Clint Curtis is. Look him up online. He's the one who wrote the software in the 2004 election that the Republican senator used to cheat the elections with the machines. So he's become an advocate for all paper elections because he's the guy who wrote the software. He happens to be a Democrat.
Oh my God!
And his name is Clint Curtis, and so we've got him as the new ROV in Shasta County, and he has this whole plan laid out where the citizens are going to clean the voter rolls, not the state, and he's going to use the cleaned voter rolls for his election. Everything's going to be done by the letter of the law. Every ballot's going underneath the camera so that everybody at home could audit the election. They could do a recount themselves just by watching the video, hand count. Then after all the hand counting is done, which nothing is counted, nothing is recorded, nothing until the polls close, even receipt of ballots, all that is secret. After the polls close, everything opens, and he's got hundreds and hundreds of county volunteers that are coming in, and they're all being trained in advance. So the election will take about 8 hours to count. They have a special election coming up. That's what we're preparing for. And so it'll be like, check this out, America. We're running our elections in a totally clean way, and it'll rock the boat. So that's a really fun thing to see happening.
But the thing is that you got a guy who has admitted that he cheated,
2004.
and now he's changed. What was it that made him? Was it, did God strike him down and talk to him through a burning bush at some point? What was it that,
I think maybe I told the story a little wrong.
Okay.
He wrote the software for the senator, but he didn't know that it was going to be used. He was showing, the senator said, if you were going to do this, how would you do it? And he said, turns out it was used. So he was called on the carpet. And so then he didn't want it pinned on him. So that's what brought him out to testify, if that makes sense. So,
that would make total sense.
Yeah.
Because not only are you having someone do something wrong, but they're doing something wrong with it, literally in your name because they're using your program.
so he may have been doing a little CYA there, which is why
yeah,
it came out.
cover your ass is always a good thing in politics.
So in 2004, you can look it up. It was a congressional hearing held in Ohio. It's on YouTube. You can hear the whole testimony that he's giving, and it's pretty enlightening.
I have met so many Democrats in the last couple of months who are now Republicans or coming over to the Republican side, and I'm seeing this, and it's due to the corruption.
Yeah.
It's due to I can't believe these people are doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
I think they're insane, and it's like, wow, you guys sound like we did 3 years ago, 4 years ago, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're coming around.
Maybe a little bit longer. And so it's nice to see them do that. And even if it's for a cover your ass or I'm just doing it because I had a come to Jesus moment, I don't care. It's a good thing. And we need more of those Democrats to come over.
In fact, Clint Curtis is a Democrat.
Right. And well, yeah, you said that. And the thing is that the last ballot stuffing laws where people were convicted, it was all Democrat.
Yes, it was.
Against Democrat. Going on, it was like black on black crime.
Yes.
They're just doing it through the Democratic Party, and so that I think is what they're realizing is that that's how you get these extremes, because if you got honest, moderate Democrats, they're going to lose to the same extremes that we're losing to. So they have every incentive to do this.
I agree. Another big news since last we spoke was in Huntington Beach, California.
Yeah.
And you were talking about sunny states. We're kicking some butt in California. So Huntington Beach is a charter city. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
It's like you have home rule counties here. They have charter cities there.
I did not know that.
And
cool.
so Huntington Beach, about 250,000 voters in Orange County, they read their own charter. And right in their charter, it says they have a right to run their own elections. So they, the county leaders, or the city leaders, said, and starting in 2026, we're running all of our own elections. Single day, added 120 new precincts, all one day, photo ID, hand counting, blah, blah, blah. The state said, no, you don't, and filed a lawsuit against them, which Huntington Beach prevailed 2 months ago. And so the state's still coming after them because it's lawfare. It's going to, but that's what's going to happen. So that sort of thing, people are asking me all the time, what are you doing out in California? What are you doing out in Oregon? You're wasting your time out there. That place is communist. And I'm like, you don't understand. It is communist. The pain level is high, so the people are awake, and so the people are easy to organize. If I go to Missouri, they're like, what are you doing here, Dr. Frank? Everything's peachy here. No, it's not okay, and here's why. So it's like I have to convince them that the situation is bad and that they need to wake up from their apathy, but I don't have to do that here. You guys are awake. You're suffering.
Jesus went to where the sinners were, right?
I
mean, that's where you got to go. You got to go where voter integrity is the worst in the States.
And Oregon, you're one of the worst.
We're one of the worst.
Yeah, you are.
Why? And that's the sad part, is that we're such a beautiful state. I'm sure you must love coming out. That's why we live here. It's incredible out here. And then you realize, boy, the politics. Oh, my gosh.
So I just came from Maine. It's also gorgeous. I was there for 10 days as well. I'm here for 10 days this time. In the old days, I used to just go county by county, bouncing all over the country. But now I do statewide efforts. And I hit multiple counties because I've learned I don't want one county at a time. I want groups of counties at a time.
That's smart.
And so when I was in Maine is very much like you in the sense that it's really a red state with a few blue dots. You're a red state with a few blue dots. They're a red state with a few blue dots. And all you really need to do is to get all that red state to work together, and you can take back control. And that's another reason why I really like working in Oregon, because most of the people here are right of center. And most of the people don't like these crazy policies that they're inflicting on you. And so it's pretty easy to get you organized here.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. And then, like you said, it's the pain factor. We know we're very much awake. Mm-hmm. In fact, people go, Rob, why do you center your podcast on Coos County? And I explained to them because I feel like I'm part of the French resistance in 1942, and this is Paris.
Well said.
Why would I want to be anywhere else?
Yeah.
This is where I'm fighting the war.
Yeah.
And I hate it. It's disgusting. They're destroying our livelihoods. They're destroying our rights. But yet, where else am I going to fight it? You guys are living pretty damn comfortable, and I feel like I'm that beacon where I can have this podcast, have people like you on there explaining to people. This guy's from Ohio, and he's telling you how bad Oregon is, and that should explain it all.
I use the same analogy. You really are the French resistance. You're the underground, and you're preparing for the Allies.
Yeah.
And I that's a great way to put it.
We are, and I feel like, and that's sad that I should feel like that. It's such a beautiful state.
It's exactly the way it is. I was just in Washington County. Just last week, the Washington County Commissioners voted, because of President Trump's executive order about DEI,
Mm-hmm.
the county voted that they were going to risk losing, I think it's $120 million in federal funds to keep their DEI resolution that they put in. So, but yet Washington County people are conservative.
Yeah.
This is the leadership of their county saying, oh, we're going to lose another $120 million. I was working the numbers with Steve beforehand. It's something like 5 to 7% of their budget. They're going to give up 5% of the, how are they going to make that up? They're either going to lay people off or they're going to raise taxes. And so they're going to hurt their own population for an ideological, very left of center position.
Go back to the resistance.
Exactly.
And that's where we're at.
That's why I brought it up as an example.
And so there is hope. Penn State. I don't know if you saw
this.
this.
I did. It's awesome.
Okay. Leah Thompson. I've been seeing
I'm very active in Pennsylvania, by the way.
Okay. So Leah Thompson, we've been saying, I've been seeing memes. Oh, she's been stripped of her medals and stuff. And we know it's been a lie.
That's
and then
awesome.
finally that comes out, that story. So we can change. It can happen.
And it's going to happen here too.
It's going to happen here too.
What I've been telling people is, this is lovely. This is like, this year is our opportunity. This is our moment. Lots of things are coming together, and I'm just going to say this. I didn't say this to you when I was last time, but I think we're going to lose the midterms. I think it's going to go back to the Democrats in the midterms. And so that means that this window is a very important opportunity.
Right.
While we still have Trump bombing Berlin, we need to invade Normandy. This is our opportunity. And if we don't seize that, if we're just waiting for Trump to fix everything, you're toast. You got to wake up the apathy, as you put it. We have to wake everybody up and get them engaged. This is our opportunity.
Before I get you out of here, is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners?
Well,
or anything I missed?
We've hit the political front pretty well. There's another theme that's been coming up in my life that I had no idea. So I travel the whole country. I'm on the road.
You're going to have more children? No.
And what I've discovered, I've stumbled upon as I've been going. It seems like everywhere I go, I've been running into this issue of sex trafficking and human trafficking.
Oh.
And I didn't expect that. I thought I was going to be working on elections. But yet everywhere I go, I keep bumping into this. And I've discovered that they're very intertwined. And for example, like the Epstein files, everybody's like, well, when is that going to be released? Don't expect it anytime soon. You want to know why? Because the names on that list are all throughout our senior government and leaders in government. So in other words, this is connected. So as I've come into contact with it, I discovered a new effort in Central California. It's called Peace of Heaven, P-E-A-C-E, peaceofheaven.life. They're putting together this new facility because as we're rescuing a lot of these children from sex trafficking, we need a place to help them recover. And so I've been part of that. And that's a new theme as well. And I haven't really said much about it in Oregon yet, but maybe as the election movement kind of kicks in, maybe I'll come and get you guys going in that category too.
Cool.
That's an important, thing.
We've covered a lot of that. When they had the movie come out,
Sound of Freedom.
Sound of Freedom.
Yeah.
I forget if it was the producer or someone on talking about that because it's on the I-5 corridor.
That's where you are. Yeah.
It's huge.
Yes.
And I'm from Albuquerque. We had it's not only drugs, you had guns going one way, drugs coming the other, and
Yeah.
money, you know,
And
flowing
children.
all over. It's I-25 and
Yeah.
I-40. You can
Yeah.
hit those in the middle of Albuquerque and go east or west, north or south. And
That's the fastest growing business in America, and
Yeah.
and so what wherever there's politics, there's money. Where there's money, and that's coming together too. So that's a new theme. Maybe next time I'm here, I can give you an update on that too. But I've been pretty excited about this Piece of Heaven thing. We've pieceofheaven.life. We raised $4 million last weekend.
oh, kick-ass.
And we
That's good.
bought a former women's prison. It was a low security prison. The state was selling it to us for on the market for $17 million. We negotiated it. We got it for $4 million. Since last weekend, we've already got another $2.5 million donated. We're going to refurbish it. We're going to try to create a place where those children that are rescued, like in Sound of Freedom, what do you do with them? When you bring them back,
Right.
they're traumatized. You can't just put them in some normal home. It takes special kind of a place. So we're creating that.
Oh,
place.
that is cool.
So that's another big theme that I've noticed. That's going to. So if you got my crystal ball out and you're looking into the future, what's going to happen? Well, you got this big election stuff happening. You got the DEI stuff happening. And I think you're about to see a lot of the sex trafficking stuff starting to come out too.
It's huge
And-
undercurrent.
Exa-
Huge undercurrent.
and that's going to start erupting. So that's would be my crystal ball for what to look for on my next
Interesting.
interview.
Interesting. Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome,
We'll
brother.
see you next time, man.
Good to see you.
All right. Wow.